All right, welcome back to Hammering Down. Um, Doing another pre-match preview in the truck. The last one actually went really, really well. Surprisingly, the internet reaches this far. Not too bad for some backwoods Wi-Fi, I suppose. But this is a really fun one that I've been really looking forward to for a while now. Legion are taking on Detroit City, as you know, on Wednesday. It's a massive match in the table. This one would end up separating the two teams by 6 or more points or pulling them level on points, depending on how it goes. This is a big, big match. But before we get too far in, I do want to go ahead and have a quick thank you to my patrons, Dylan, Matt, Zach, Harry, Sandy, and Clay. Thank you guys for supporting me and allowing me to do the StreamYard thing, which now actually allows me to upload on YouTube. So that's awesome. But that's not what y'all are here for. Y'all are here to hear about Le Rouge. Uh, I don't know what gold is in French, but so we're just going to act like we're just going to skip past that. Um, but I am being joined by a guy from 451, which is one of the best podcasts in the USL. I say that about a lot of the podcasters that I have on here, but there's also a lot of quality stuff in the USL, and 451 is absolutely up there. I'm being joined by a guy who is a part, I guess, small percent owner of Detroit City Football Club, but I guess who isn't? Um, and just overall great guy to have some banter with on Twitter. I'm being joined by Dennis. What's going on, man?
How's it going?
Hey, I'm doing awesome, man. For people who are watching, Dennis was trying to point to his, I guess, paper of ownership, his
Yeah,
legal
there are
contract.
there are. I have one, and my wife has two shares, so she had to outbuy me.
Man. So, Dennis, you've been around for and been active with Detroit City for a while. This is a pretty famed club at this point. Everybody knows about Detroit City. Everybody knows about Northern Guard. Everybody knows a kind of what you guys are. Because before, I think a lot of people knew about the football club, they knew about the fans and how diehard it is. Just from what you've seen from all the different levels, what's different up there, man?
Um, it's it's a good question with a few answers, I think. So, I mean, everybody who knows me knows I'm not from here. I'm from Ireland, so I grew up like supporting the Premier League, and not really supporting local soccer in Ireland. It wasn't really a big thing there. It is now. It's massive. Um, but growing up, American soccer was always kind of. I don't want to go too harsh on it, but it was seen like a joke outside of America, like the MLS, and it was kind of the butt of a lot of jokes. So when I moved here in 2015, I started hearing about City and this club, and all my friends were like, "Hey, like you're Irish, like you like soccer. We know you're like big into Man United. Like you watch soccer all the time. Like you get up at stupid hours on Saturday mornings to watch it. Like you should come to this club in Hamtramck." And I was like, "No, like that's American soccer. Like I'm not interested. Like stupid me." Made it. And I got to a point where a friend of mine, she bought tickets for City were playing Glentoran, who are a Northern Irish football team, and she's like, "I got you tickets, like you got to come." So that was around actually 5 years ago. It was 2017. I think it was the end of June was like my 5 year anniversary, and I went purely because I don't like Glentoran. So I went to literally just boo the other team. And I walked in, and maybe like half an hour before the match, and like within 10 minutes of being there, I was just like, yeah, this is great. Like I'm down for this. Where like can I get season tickets? Should I get season tickets? Like how many games are left? When are the games? Like what is this? Like what even level is this? Like so yeah, it just gripped me real quick, like the smoke and the drums and the because that doesn't happen at home, like the constant chanting and the drumming and like everybody being into the game, like it just doesn't really happen. Like it doesn't happen at Ireland matches. It doesn't happen at United matches. Like I've been around Europe following Ireland, and the away games are probably the ones that are most similar to the games here in Detroit. In that like nobody sits down, everybody's up cheering for the whole game. Like it's just a little bit different. But then this was like that, but like times 10. And yeah, within 10, 15 minutes, I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna come to these. I'm gonna come to these a lot. Like this is great. And then to find out that like most of the people playing them were like college kids or like older dudes who just didn't necessarily make the step up through the leagues. And I say older, I mean like upper 20s, like just dudes that didn't catch with MLS teams or like but like to know they were here and they were playing for free and like they were still giving it their all, like it was just like, okay, yeah, that's cool. I play a game, an Irish game called Gaelic football, which is kind of a mix of a few sports, and it's completely amateur, even at the highest levels. Like everybody who plays doesn't get paid, and that's what it reminded me of. Like because everybody still gives their all, like everybody's putting in the tackles and going until they can't go anymore, and that's just kind of what this felt like. And then a few weeks later, there was a game. It was City at home versus AFC Ann Arbor. And at the time, Ann Arbor were top of the league and we were second. So it was like for who basically would win the division or who would take top spot. And it was a Friday night game, and they were like close to sold out. I think like 7,500 tickets. It was about to be like our biggest ever like attendance at a game, and this was just NPSL regular season, so it was like a big deal. And that night, the weather gods decided, no, that's not happening today. And before the game started, like the heavens just opened, like it was just rain, like it just didn't stop, like it was relentless. But they started the game anyway, and 4 minutes and 51 seconds in, the referee like pulled the players off the pitch. Like, we can't do this. There was water pooling on the pitch, and so they pull them off. But the thousands of people were there. Not many of them left. So like a lot of people stayed. Like the chants were still going, the drums were still going. Like people were popping smoke every so often. And it was just like a party for like, they kept, every time they saw lightning, they pushed the game back a half an hour, and it was like an hour and a half later at one stage, and there was still like a ton of people there. And like in this time, like people had jumped on the field to try and like bail the water out. Like they were out there with mops and brushes, and it was like chaos. But like so many people just stayed, and it was like a real like community feel, especially for like, this was maybe my second or third game I had gone to, and it was just like I didn't want to leave, and like I wasn't like fully invested by that stage, you know. It wasn't like I was like, this is my team, like my ride or die, but like that kind of got me towards there, because I was like, yeah, this is cool that people want to hang out here. And like there was people in the tunnels. So from our podcast, like we go and talk in the tunnels, and that's kind of where that comes from, because the name of our podcast obviously is the 451 podcast. And that's where that comes from, is that the time when they called the match was 451, and then that's what it ended up being. They ended up postponing the game to like the next Tuesday, and I think we lost. But by that stage, like the bonds with the team were forged, I guess. It was just yeah, it just felt like a different thing. It wasn't like going to like a Lions game and going home afterwards complaining, or like it was just like, yeah, this just feels like home, and like it's a place I want to be. And then yeah, it just kind of took off from there. I started getting more involved with like Twitter and like people on Twitter, and getting to know people, and met like most of the people I've met through City, like I've met on Twitter first and then met them in real life afterwards. But yeah, that's kind of where it all sprang from for me, was that first random friendly that I kind of got forced to go to. And then the game where our podcast gets its name from kind of cemented it for me. I was just like, I mean, if these people are hanging out here for this, like that's dope.
It's funny you mentioned that match. Obviously, I was going to get to it and ask about the name of the podcast itself, but there's some cool ties there. One of Legion's players who will probably be out for this match, but he was one of the left backs for Ann Arbor in that match. So he was there. He was in attendance, Jake Roof. He talked about that night before actually. He said he remembered having to leave and just stay and then leave again. So it was Jake's talked about that before, so that's a cool little tie. But for
Right.
Legion fans, that's that kind of rings home a little bit. Last year there were so many times that rain and whatnot just pulled onto the field because BBVA was a crap hole when it comes to drainage. And there was several matches, specifically against FC Tulsa, that fans in the front office, and by front office I even mean our billionaire owners, were on the field, squeegeeing, water off the pitch. They were taking the time to get everything off. They did everything they could to get that match going. And, I think a lot of Legion fans feel the same way, but it's also not exactly the same. But Legion also came up through NPSL, through those smaller leagues. And I remember going out to Hammers matches and loving it. And I know there's a lot of fans that, we love where the team have gone. Having a professional football club in Birmingham's amazing, and it does so much for the city. But there's a little bit of those days in the NPSL, those days in, when it was only 1,000 people, on a good night. It was just so much fun. It was just a different atmosphere. So I think a lot of OG fans of the Hammers and now the Legion are really going to resonate with Detroit City.
Right, and that comes up every so often in in the Discord and stuff. Like different stories from like before my time will come up, and like I kind of like there's some stories I just know the lore of. I wasn't even there, but I've heard them enough now that I know. But like yeah, a lot of that like when it was like smaller crowds, and that's how that's how we were trying to get more people to come out to like the women's games this year. Was like if that's more of like the OG feel, like if they just get weird, right? Because there's smaller crowds so you can talk to more people and get to know people more in person, like and get to know them on a offline level, like not
Yeah.
on Discord or Twitter, like. But this is how you do it. Like you come to a game where there's smaller crowds, and yeah, so um yeah, as the crowds get bigger, it kind of makes things a little more difficult to keep that like community feel, I guess, or to keep it from feeling not super clicky. But yeah, we're we're trying to do that still. But yeah, I completely get what you're saying about the smaller crowds still.
It's hard, and it's hard to keep that from getting clicky, especially now that I believe recently the El Paso match was Detroit City's technically their first ever sellout in club history. But obviously Northern Guard looked and sounded incredible. They always do, but there's a lot of making sure that the fans who are on the outsides beside Northern Guard, they get involved. People on the other side of the pitch, they get involved, and making sure they feel welcomed and not just involved. It's a really hard balance to strike, by trying to keep the same traditions as before, trying to really stay true to yourself while also not being gatekeepy. It's a
Right.
really difficult balance.
Yeah, I always I always try and make sure, like, obviously I come at a lot of stuff from a Northern Guard perspective because yeah, I'm pretty involved with the Northern Guard supporters. Like I run comms for them with like a few other people, and um but like I'm always quick to point out like that it's not just the Northern Guard that are that are putting on this show. Like there was a game earlier. in the season. I can't remember if it was the Open. It might have been against Columbus where there was some smoke that wasn't necessarily coming directly from the Northern Guard, and like it was, I felt like it was important like to point out that like it's not just us, that it's not just the Northern Guard that does like the chants and stuff. Like, yeah, they're front and center, and they get a lot of the publicity, and the media wants to talk to them, but like there's a lot of other groups too, and a lot of smaller groups who are definitely should get their dues as well.
That's how we feel. That's definitely how Legion fans feel because, Electron Ultras and the Magic City Brigade are the big deal. But we have a Colombian support group where it's just a big group of people who, with all Colombian guys and girls, kids, just families coming together, and they stand right beside everybody else. There's a bit of a language barrier, but it doesn't really matter. They bring out their instruments. They clap along, they play music along, and it's really cool. It's really interesting watching those groups work together, even though they don't get the same publicity that they definitely deserve.
Right.
It's one of the cooler parts of the matches. But we've been talking for a little bit, and we haven't really talked about the team this year. Legion and Detroit City have played already once this year. Detroit City fans do like to occasionally remind me of my podcast that I posted afterwards, which fair.
No, it happens. This is
Yeah,
why we record on Monday nights, because it gives us a couple days space.
yeah. I I normally give myself I'd normally give myself a full 24 hours to watch the match back.
All right.
But after that match, I was running so hot. I'm like, you know what? No, we're recording now. That was, you know what? I don't regret it, but man, it's like, not great. But, there's some players on this team, and I know there's going to be a lot of Detroit City people listening to this for the first time, listening to me for the first time, and with this podcast. There's something I've been saying for about how long has the season been going on? About 4 months now? For
Yeah.
about 3 months now, and it's Nate Steinwasser is the MVP of the league. He is the most valuable player in this league. There is nobody more valuable to their team than Nate Steinwasser. Dude is ridiculous. I know my XG quote gets tossed around a lot in Detroit City, a lot, but if there is any other goalkeeper, maybe in the league, that's in between the sticks for Detroit City, Legion are walking out of Detroit with a 1-1 draw or a 2-1 win, and there is no question in my mind. And I can say that about probably 5 or 6 other Detroit City matches that they come away with all 3 points or a share of the points because Nate Steinwasser is ridiculous.
Yeah. I think I probably got into it with you a little bit about it, but yeah, I think the point is fair. I think we do tend to give up a lot of shots. A high percentage of them are kind of where we want the shots to be from, if that makes sense. I think because when we do have our full defense, the three boys in there, Devin, Steven, and Maddie, I think they work really well in together to kind of keep those shots on the edge. But we do tend to give up 3 or 4 good chances a game. That, yeah, if we didn't have Nate in there, I'm fairly certain too we'd be a good bit worse off than we are. Um, and like when I talk about, and I've waxed lyrical about Nate this season already too. Like before this season started, there was a small contingent of like City fans who were talking about who they would want to bring in as a keeper, and they were talking some Evan Luro and like other people just because he's been here before, I guess, and because he was injured, so people figured he'd be looking for a new team, which it didn't make sense to me. But there was a small group of us who were like, if and the big thing was Nate's an accountant, right? So he does, or he did, I think he still has a full time job. They just, the company he works for are pretty good with letting him go training and like work from home or whatever, like whatever he needs to do to work the way he needs to work. But that was always seemed to be the biggest thing with Nate, was that he's trying to balance this full-time job with also being the goalkeeper for before this a NISA team and before that an MPSL team. So it was a little easier before because the seasons were short or whatever. So I think a lot of us thought he wouldn't be able to make the jump with the team, but there was a group of us who were like, it's disrespectful to say if Nate wants to come with us, he comes with us. Like that's solid. Like he should be the first name signed after Stephen Carroll if he wants to come with us, because like we know how good he is. And when it was announced he was signing, people were like, yeah, like maybe there'll be a competition. It's like, no, Nate's the starter unless he gives us a reason not to be the starter. And I think he's given us close to 100 reasons that he's the starter. He seems to get this jump on shots that sometimes, and he does make spectacular saves, but sometimes he makes a save that looks kind of routine, but it's because he's already moved into a position to make it that way. And if you watch him, like he's just really good at taking a step before the actual danger comes. And his positioning is just because he's not like super tall, but his positioning is just, it's like otherworldly. Like it's really something to see live too. Like if you watch him, like you see these steps that he takes. He's probably the keeper I'm most confident when other teams get a penalty. Like I'm just like, nah, there's a good chance Nate saves this. Like our first game this season was the San Antonio game.
Mm-hmm.
And we were watching it, and there was a big crowd watching it in our city clubhouse. And like as soon as they got the penalty, I was like, no, Nate saves this. I was watching it with some friends that don't usually watch with me, and they were like, oh no, penalty. I was like, no, Nate saves this. First game of the season, just chalk it down. It's a save. And then he saved it. And it's like I don't know, it's weird. He reads the ball in a way that I haven't really seen a keeper read the ball. And yeah.
If Legion fans want a good example of this, go to, I think it's around the 82nd minute mark. Johnny Dean has a one-on-one with Nate at the very end of the match. And, Johnny is, and I've said this before, and I don't think this is a hot take at all. Johnny might be the fastest player in the USL, especially with the ball on his feet. He's ridiculously fast. And Nate just read where he was going 3 steps before Johnny knew where he was going. And if you look at the save, it looks so easy. You borderline looked at Johnny and said, why didn't you do better? And then you watch the slow-mo replay of it, and what Nate did was insane. His ability to close, I mean, I don't know what you would actually call it in footy, but I know like hockey terms. He closed up that 5-hole. He got big, even though he had to go low. He read it perfectly, stopped the shot. There's not many players in the league. There's not many keepers in the league that really can read the match like he can. Because if he's a step behind that, Johnny has another second on the ball. He probably fires it, around Nate, and it's a tied ball game. It's ridiculous how well he plays. If people want to look at my preseason predictions, when I talked about Detroit City, I said Detroit City. I underestimated Detroit City, admittedly. I thought they would finish 8th, right outside the playoffs. And I said as well, though, that if you're looking for a player to watch, Nate Steinwasser is going to be the guy. Goalkeeping ability translates really well throughout the leagues in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell a quality keeper from the lowest leagues of the lowest leagues to the top. It just translates. And I said straight up that Nate was going to be that guy coming into the season. He's going to be the one to watch out for. But there's another person that you mentioned, and this is the biggest blow to Detroit City. And we mentioned it before, was that, this season is over twice as long. Actually, it might be, what is that, 3 times? 3 times as long as a normal NPSL season, from 12 to, 36, 34 matches?
Yeah, it's pretty close to probably 3 times as much as an MPSL.
It's
there was a
insane.
few with NISA, but they were like split up leagues. Like
but it's the the squad has taken some hits, and no bigger one than Amu Mensah. Devin's ridiculous too, and his injury has been big. Detroit City's defense has still been holding on, but it doesn't look anywhere near as safe as it once did. You know what I mean? I mean, if you look even past the Tampa Bay Rowdies match, which Detroit City came now and played really well. The scoreline says 1-0, but in the XG says whatever it was. I know it was like 100 shots to like 6.
Yeah.
But even then, none of those shots really seem to challenge except for the one that went into the back of the net.
Right.
That three-man back line held strong again. With I'm going to try number 22. I don't
We
want to butcher his name.
we met.
We met. That's not far off. I was going to call it Almete, which is a little bit off.
No,
But
when he was coming in, we were figuring it was French, and I think he corrected it properly, and now I forget exactly what it was. But yeah, I was calling him we met or
we
we met.
met. But he's come in and stepped up well. What have Detroit City fans thought about him?
Um, I think when he came in, we were thinking like, yeah, good cover for whatever may come, and then it turned out that he came in at the right time because each of our defenders has been injured. I can't remember. Maybe he came in when Matty got injured. But then obviously since then Steven's been injured and Devin's out for the season, which yeah, as you said, is like a really big blow. He was even more than Nate. He was my so every year we give out for the men's and women's team. It's called the Black Arrow Award, which is our MVP. Um, it's named after a player that played for the Detroit Cougars way back in the day and then went to Celtic. He was the first black player in Britain, whose name is now escaping me. Um, but that's our MVP award is named after him, and it's awarded by the fans. Like the fans, they do a vote. So Devin was my far and away leader for that. Like he played until he got injured, he played every single minute of the season. He hadn't subbed out once, like he hadn't missed the game. And he was the only player. Him and Nate were the only two that had played every single minute of every game. So when he went down, it was like crushing because like we knew as soon as he went down, like it must be bad because like he doesn't go down.
Yeah.
So yeah, but Carl being here, it's kind of taken the blow down a little bit. Mikey Bryant has kind of subbed in there too when needed, and he's done a pretty admirable job, considering it's not really his natural position at all. A lot of that is just down to Stevie and Maddie. Like Stevie and Maddie have this connection that like if one isn't on the spot, the other one is, which kind of came out in that in the Tampa game the other day when in the first half a shot got lifted over Nate and Maddie just was there out of nowhere and it was Stevie that was putting in the tackle originally. And that happens the other way around too. It's just the two of them have this kind of bond back there where it's pretty hard to penetrate it. But yeah, Carl stepping in, he's been. I don't like. We didn't really know a ton about him. We knew he'd been at Indy, so Trevor's connections probably there was what had him come this way. And I mean, we all kind of trust Trevor and Trevor's tactical nous. You know, like he hasn't. You were saying earlier that a lot of your outburst about the team or that the manager isn't your biggest fan because you're not afraid to say whatever. But we haven't had any reason to to get on Trevor's case, you know, like since he's been in, he's basically just won everything that he's been in, like whether it was through MPSL and then into Nissan now. And obviously I don't think we're gonna win a trophy this season, but like he's definitely outperforming what we even expected. Like even you saying you expected us to be eighth and miss the playoffs. I think a lot of us expected even lower than that for the first year. Um, So yeah, when Trevor brings someone in, we figure that he knows that they're going to be a good fit for the culture here, and they're going to be a good fit for like his tactics. So Carl coming in, and we were reading up on him like that he could kind of play anywhere across a three. So we knew that was good. We know he's a little older than the other boys, so like we were figuring that he was just coming in as cover, and like I say, it happened at the right time. So I do see teams trying to kind of target his side because maybe he's not as on top of it as Maddie and Stevie, but I also see him kind of standing up and not necessarily just backing down off people. I think a lot of the goals we've conceded this year have been kind of our defense kind of switching off for a second. It's just the wrong second. And I think that blame, not that it's blame, but like that could be charged to all 4 or 5 dudes that have played in that central three all season between Carl, Michael, Steven, Matty, and Devin. They've probably all had moments where they switched off and it's cost us. Um, we've been talking about that recently on the podcast that like these last minute equalizers have really cost us this season. Like they've probably kept us to 4 points from a possible 12 that we could have had if we just stayed switched on till the end. Um, but yeah, Carl coming in has been good. Davin being out is devastating. Like I say, he was my front runner for MVP just because he came from Michigan Stars. No one really knew what to expect. Um, there was like when we were discussing like who we thought we might sign before the season started, like there was discussions about what players we would take, we would like to take from what teams, and Devin's name did come up purely because for the Stars, it's probably him and their goalkeeper McCurva is probably their two best players, or was their two best players last year. Um, and the goalkeeper's name came up a little bit for if Nate wasn't going to make the jump with us. Um, but yeah, Devin's name had come up. So when we signed him, there was some excitement. There was some excitement that we'd taken their captain. Um, and yeah, but we didn't know what to expect because we didn't know what the jump was going to be like. You know, we didn't know. There were certain players we knew were going to come with us that like we were like these need to be signed immediately, and that was like Nate and Stevie, Maddie, and Maxi, and then there was others that would have been great to have that I still think would be great to have because our squad is very thin. But yeah, we weren't sure about Devin, and Devin just came in and blew all of our minds. And then when he went down, that was the only thing that's come close to me being as panicked as seeing Devin go down was when I saw Nate go down the other day,
Oh yeah.
last weekend, and nobody kind of. You usually know when someone's down with cramps because someone immediately goes in to do like the pull the leg up or whatever, and no
Yeah.
one was touching Nate. So like the Discord was going crazy, the podcast group chat was going crazy. We're like, what is happening? Um, but yeah, obviously it turned out to be cramps, so that was fine. Um, but yeah, it's Carl's been good. I think pretty much everyone that's been brought in has done somewhat of a job when called upon. I know we kind of have talked about we'd like to see a bit more of certain players, or we'd like to see changes made
Mackie
a little
Job,
bit earlier, maybe. But say again.
like a Mackie Job maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think Mac is injured too, though.
He he has to be, and this sounds so harsh because he is a nice guy. He's a genuinely good dude.
Mhm.
Despite only being in Birmingham for like 5, 6 matches, has to be one of the most hated players I've ever seen around Birmingham.
Oh,
He
really?
he we were, I know a lot of Detroit City fans were kind of rubbing it in like, "Oh, we beat you guys and then we take your striker." And then a lot of Legion fans were like, "No, thank you. Please, no, take him. Whatever you want from him. Please just have him." Also, if anybody's watching the YouTube version of this, The reason I keep looking up, there's a massive spider above my head, and I'm not too sure what to do about it because it's not messing with me, but I'd also rather it not be here. So I'm gonna handle that as soon as we're done. But I got 2 more players I wanna ask you about, and one of them you already mentioned, so it's a beautiful segue. Um, it's Maxi Rodriguez and Anton Openo. I mean, Maxi is ridiculously good. Anton Openo is always due for a goal against Legion. That's just what he does. He's always due for a goal against everybody. It always seems like in those moments he does it. And then Maxi Rodriguez is just, my goodness. He looked better than everybody else in Nisa, and there's not many times that he's looked overmatched. And for anybody that's wondering, you kind of mentioned 4 points being caused by not being fully switched on. I am in the Detroit City boat. New Mexico was offsides. I just want to throw that one out there. But Maxi Rodriguez and Anton Openo, what have Detroit City fans thought about them with this jump to USL?
So Maxi has always been like, since he came, has been a fan favorite, and I think before the jump to USL was announced, a lot of people were kind of resigned to losing him at some point. Like we thought, like, I mean, there's no way he sticks around in Nisa. Not that there's anything wrong with Nisa or the level, but we just thought he probably was being scouted by bigger teams, like or bigger name teams. So making the jump, we thought was probably good in a couple ways, but like for being able to keep Maxi and hopefully have Maxi just become this like legend in Detroit, like hopefully stay as long as he wants and as long as he's playing well. But yeah, he really started the season hot. He was he scored a couple of goals that were like right off the training ground, and it was just like that front like 4 or 5 just kind of had this connection, and it's kind of cooled down a little bit now. Which is a big point of contention around the fans right now, is that we're not scoring goals and we need to score goals, because I mean, we just talked about the defense for 10 minutes, right? Like the
Yeah,
defense, even when they do switch off and concede a goal, like it's one goal. Like we don't lose games by 2, 3, 4 goals.
yeah.
There's only been a game or two where the other team has scored 2 goals, and like so, like in that case or in that situation, what you need is help from your offense, you know. And we did start off pretty good, but as I say, we don't concede that many. We actually haven't scored that many either. So, um, I think towards the start of the season, we were a bit more clinical with our chances. Like we mightn't score that many, but like we'd score and then like sit on it, and that hasn't really been happening in the last few games. But yeah, Maxi definitely between the first say 10 games in the league and then the cup run that we weren't really expecting. Uh, I think he kind of got burned out at some point, and then with Brad going out too, for that kind of extended period, he kind of had to shift position a little bit, because what we wanted, or what the gaffer seems to want in midfield, is like Brad to be in there as the pivot and Maxi to be kind of roving around doing what Maxi does. So with Brad being out for that couple of months, it kind of affected Maxi's game too, because he had to become a bit more centralized and doing a bit more for the team. Which he obviously does with a plan. Like he's never going to complain about it or anything, but like it obviously wears on you and affects you in a different way. But yeah, I think everyone's been pretty happy with Maxi. Maxi's Maxi. Everybody loves Maxi. That long mane of hair uh,
Beautiful.
has definitely gotten him a lot of fans. And then that's a good segue, because you mentioned Opino too, and since he's cut his hair, he has not scored a goal, which is
Simply.
becoming a thing. So when Antoine cut his hair, it was quite the news among the fans, because the flow was gone, and that was like, you know, we've had two things this year. One is the hashtag mustache mafia with Mikey Bryant and his mustache, where he somehow convinced, including me earlier in the season, convince like 100 dudes to just rock mustaches to the games. And then the flow, obviously, Antoine coming in, he had a Twitter fan account dedicated to his hair.
Yeah.
Which kind of like piqued our interest. We're like, wait, what? So he started obviously the season like real hot, and he just seemed to get the team immediately and slot in like seamlessly. And there were so many matches towards the start of the season where he was like almost getting in fist fights, like jumping in for other players, and like it was just like, yeah, he like this dude wants to be here and like he gets it. And
He
yeah,
does
since the
he does
last few
know where
games,
it's on.
he's kind of cooled off too. Which now the 451 podcast is starting to put down to he cut his hair and he lost his power.
Yeah, I think a lot of Legion fans were concerned with Prosper Kasim, who recently cut his dreads, which was a big blow to Legion Nation, to be honest, because they were luscious, just beautiful. And he cut them back to, and he looked just like he did back in year one Legion days, which we were not a very good scoring team. So we saw him cut his hair and we got very concerned about it. And then it ended up being okay, but I think there's still a little bit of fear in me. It's like, is he good? Are we going to score? Man, I really don't like that the spider's moving now. I'm not going to lie to you. At first, he was just chilling, and now he's like really just going everywhere. All right.
These are the risks you run when you're recording in the wild like you are.
Yeah, no kidding. I guess I deserve this in a weird way. I feel like if this was in a normal room, I could just move away from it, but there's only
Right.
so much space. Okay, it's fine. If at the very least, or at the worst case scenario, is that I get bitten by a spider on podcast, which would end up being pretty legendary, to be honest, and that'd be really great for the clout. Man, but I'm super stoked for this match. This one's a massive one for Legion. Obviously for Detroit City as well. These two are trying to duke it out for 5th place and fighting for that last home playoff spot in 4th. Um, as biased or unbiased as you want, how do you think this one's going to go, man?
I think because it's kind of sandwiched in between two games too. Like we play Oakland tomorrow at home, so I think a few of us are hoping the Oakland game is sort of our get right game. Um, we're hoping because Oakland tend to ship a group of goals and sometimes they score a group of goals. So we're hoping they'll just ship some goals for us tomorrow and get everybody feeling real nice before the Birmingham game. So I guess it really is it's gonna test the boys again. I know these 3-game runs aren't necessarily, at least, fan favorites. I don't know how the players feel about them. But yeah, the Birmingham game, like you say, like it's a big game. Um, a 6-pointer, as they say. Although it might not be by then, depending how tomorrow goes. But yeah, I would hope we can pull out at least a draw. Just because that seems to be like our forte on the road this year is keeping it tight or getting a goal and then kind of sitting on it. But yeah, your guys are certainly a bit more informed than ours. Like we did just lose our 5-game unbeaten streak, but like a lot of them were draws compared to yours. Your last 5 are 4 wins, so you're definitely in the ascendancy, I would say.
Yeah. I don't know. This one's interesting because it's Legion have gone through tactical changes throughout the year, and this is a very tactically different side than last time these two teams played. Detroit City plays really well on the road. They haven't gotten a lot of results, which I think makes them look bad, but we've also seen just about every team look bad on the road, and we have yet to see that really out of Detroit City. Um, I'm really stoked to see this match. I I'm not really believing in a win for the Three Sparks here. I would love to say that we would, but as defensively sound as Detroit City is and well organized they are at the back, and like I said before, even if they do get their 3-4 chances on goal where maybe it's a 1v1 or a 1v2 where the advantage is almost always the attacking player. Do you guys have a guy named Nate Steinwasser, which is a great neutralizer? This is one that I kind of fear in a way, not necessarily one in fear of losing, because as you said, Detroit City's scoring has not been great. Also, we are recording this the day before Legion take on the San Diego Loyal. For people who are maybe wondering, maybe I should have said that up top, but I mean, whatever. I don't care. You
I
figure
gave
that
it away.
out. It's fine. I mean, I was going to bring it up eventually, and I told myself I was going to do it at the top of the show, and then I never did. So that's whatever. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how the Loyal match goes. I think if Legion can get a win out of the Loyal match, I will be very confident about Detroit City. But that said, I don't know if that's a good way to think about it, considering how well Detroit City travels. So we'll see. But man, this has been an absolute blast talking to you. I hope Legion fans enjoyed the conversation as well, because I mean, like I said, I listen to 451 a lot. It's a blast to listen to, and if people want to listen to a supporters driven podcast, especially in a place that's fairly unique like Detroit, I mean, it's a great podcast to listen to. But man, where can people find you?
Oh, me personally?
Yeah.
I am on Twitter at PhantomDD87. I should probably figure out something a bit more succinct for that, but Mister, I I hear my other half laughing in the background. Um, but yeah, it's usually and Mister Brightside is like my name up top. Um, yeah, that's where you find me. And then on the 451 podcast, we tried to record weekly. We just had kind of a break for a few weeks, but I think we're back at it now. Usually drops like Monday night, Tuesday morning, whenever Red decides to edit it. And
I get that. Oh, I get that so hard.
yeah, and then yeah, Northern Guard supporters too. I guess some of those spicy takes come from me. Not all of them. I can't take I can't take credit for any of the very good ones. There's a couple dudes there who are a little more lyrical than I am. Um, but yeah, that's all my spots.
Beautiful, man. Well, it's an absolute blast talking to you, Dennis. I had an absolute blast. Um, for everybody in Legion Land, go ahead and come out on Wednesday. This is a massive match for home playoffs against a really good defensive side. We'll see how this Legion attack really stacks up against an elite defense and an elite goalkeeper. This is a big one for Detroit City fans. Thank you for listening. I know this is technically an opposing podcast, so I really appreciate you guys taking the time and listening. And I'm sure something I said along the way will get me made fun of, but that's fine. You guys are, I will say this, and I've said this before, you guys are a lot more fun than other fan bases. So I know everything that gets sent to me is out of banter and out of jest and not out of pure hatred, so that's cool.
We kind of pride ourselves on being noisy online, but like when you come hang out with us, you see that we're all pretty nice people, and we're pretty welcoming too to traveling fans once they're nice and not jabbing at the local area where
For
we
sure.
where we where we have our home.
Oh yeah, we Legion fans are not a fan of Pittsburgh because of a certain COVID outbreak that cost us our first ever home playoff game.
Oh
Um
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so we're bitter towards them. So that can be a mutual hatred. So
There you
that's
go.
all right.
Pittsburgh and Memphis.
Yeah, there we go. Beautiful. With Ben Pierman, that just go ahead and what are you missing, man? So, but I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Yeah, it was fun.
And to everybody listening, thank you so much once again. And until next time, guys, keep hammering on.